Dinue Maganatuk. I greet you as relatives today in the language of my ancestors, my Anishinaabe or Turtle Mountain Chippewa ancestors. I also want to start by acknowledging Earth Day. Happy Earth Day, everyone. And also acknowledge we are on the lands of the Akimel, Atum, and Peeposh peoples on the proud sovereign nation of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community and the Gila River tribe. It's so rare and so special to be part of a university that has tribal partnerships and works closely with Indigenous peoples locally and internationally. I'm here today to talk to you real briefly about a special project called Sounds of Belonging. And as we heard from Peter Schlosser, one of the first rallying cries for the environmental movement was Silent Spring, because we could no longer hear the sounds of bird song. And so I've been very, very fortunate to work with some dear colleagues here at ASU focused on a new initiative that was birthed by the GFL, Global Futures Laboratory, with the Storytelling Initiative. So as many elders have told me in my life, and I think it's a traditional saying among many Indigenous peoples, Creator gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth because we're supposed to listen twice as much as we're supposed to speak. I think that is something that modern Western society has forgot about, because we seem to really speak a lot more than we listen sometimes. And so I also love these words of wisdom by Lorenz Oken that says, "The eye takes a person into the world, but the ear brings the world into a human being." And so we have back here, you're looking at me, but are you really seeing me? The earth is asking. The earth is also asking, are you listening to me? Are you hearing me? And so listening is more of a receptive activity. Some would say more of a feminine activity. It is more of an interior type of experience. Looking out, always being facing outward, brings us out into the world, which has many great benefits. But listening really brings the world inside of us. So it breaks down that artificial boundary between inner and outer. And so with wonderful Stephen Beschloss, who sadly is no longer here, but thriving in the East Coast with his family and at NYU. He was the former director of the Narrative Storytelling Initiative. He and Garth Payne, who you heard about earlier, the wonderful acoustical ecologist and sound specialist, world-renowned expert in that, put together this exciting project, Sounds of Belonging. We're basically recording and inviting people to share audio stories about sound, place, and belonging, and that profound intersection in the human experience. And so here's our little team from our new refreshed website. After Stephen left, we really wanted to highlight this project again and bring it back to the forefront as a GFL activity. So everyone is invited to participate. And our goal or our mission or our aim really is to make the vast landscape of our planet closer and more intimate. We heard from our students, we heard from Peter Schlosser, we heard from many folks that there are great divisions in the world today. We're facing a brutal poly-crisis of epic proportions, biblical proportions with climate change, and we really need to bridge these divides that are happening between peoples, cultures, economies, nations, religions, and our relationship with the natural world. And so we were inspired by our many different transdisciplinary backgrounds, narrative storytelling, a long-term tradition of Indigenous peoples and traditional cultures, with storytelling as really the pedagogy, the means of sharing knowledge and information. This is also documented in a wonderful book and methodology from Canada called Indigenous Story Work that many of my students use here in their graduate programs at ASU. We've also been inspired by the wonderful field of environmental humanities, Joni Adamson and the Humanities Institute. And again, breaking down that artificial boundary of the sciences and the humanities, or logic and emotion, the head and the heart, the importance of literature, of storytelling, of religion, spirituality, poetry, music, sound, along with science and data and information and logic and predictive models. Also, the field of acoustical ecology is very exciting with bioacoustics, different ways to procure data, listening to the environment. So acoustical ecology is a burgeoning field. Again, Garth Payne, right here on our campus, is a wonderful expert, internationally renowned expert in the area. And then there's another area that I've been exploring for quite some time, Indigenous sound studies, exploring what are often called the soundscapes, the storyscapes, or the songscapes of Indigenous peoples, such as the desert tribes here who have stories and songs that talk about the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River and down at Baja, and they have songs that have trails that traverse thousands of miles, and there's just encyclopedias of ecological knowledge embedded in their songs and their soundscapes. So all of these different fields have inspired us. And we really wanted to address ecological and climate grief. This is very real for everyone around the world these days. Extreme despair, loneliness, we had the pandemic. We see ecological destruction every day for indigenous and land-based peoples. This is a pain that is very visceral and cultural. To see a sacred forest or grove be clear-cut, or a river be dammed, or an ocean be polluted with our Hawaiian relatives. So we are facing a global epidemic of isolation and loneliness. The World Health Organization has indicated that 25 to 33%, that's 1 in 4 people in our room that we know, 1 in 3 people have experiences of loneliness, isolation, and despair. And we feel that storytelling can be a healing process to bridge that divide. Loneliness and isolation is a serious health risk. It can lead to increases in dementia, cardiovascular disease, so many health problems today, early death. So how do we bridge this gap? How do we address this epidemic of loneliness and despair and climate grief? Well, there's many different ways, but we really want to address the loneliness effect because research suggests that this social isolation is as real as many other health problems such as smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, eating ultra-processed foods, being exposed to toxins, etc. So we see belonging and reconnecting to place is an antidote to this loneliness and to this despair. What we often call eco-literacy. Our society has become incredibly eco-illiterate. We don't even know the native plants outside. We don't know that this canal is historic and ancestral to the indigenous peoples. We've lost connection with our environment. We need these social and ecological connections, and that really is needed for deep listening. Garth Payne talks about deep listening, passive listening, directed listening, many different ways to exercise and grow our listening capacities, which really engenders empathy and compassion, again, across these divides that we're facing today. It has also been well known recently with research that planetary health is really a mirror of human health. And so it's important that we address the human health crisis as part of planetary health, and one of the most fundamental ways is addressing that loneliness and despair, which leads to apathy and lack of action. The opposite of what we saw with our fabulous students who are inspired to stay positive and affirm their connections to nature, affirm their connections to each other. And this is research coming out of Canada that's looking at the many different determinants of planetary health. You'll see that one of them right up there is a Mother Earth level determinant, respecting the feminine, returning to feminine principles and values of leadership and governance. And of course, Indigenous peoples level of determinants. We need to have our land tenure rights recognized, the ability to speak our own languages, focus on our own health systems, and of course, honor youth and elders of all peoples. So through sound and through story, we feel that we can engender a greater healing in society and greater sustainability and resilience for a tumultuous future. Nature sounds, birds, water, wind, etc., is documented to reduce stress, induce relaxation, support mindfulness, prevent or lower pain levels, and even help you heal quicker. If a person in a hospital is recovering from an illness, if you even have a picture of the ocean up there or a beautiful desert, you will get better than if you don't have a picture of nature up there. So nature is truly healing. And also listening to each other's stories. You know, sometimes when we're in conflict or crisis, what do we want? Just someone to listen to us. We don't want someone to solve our problems, give us advice. We just need someone to listen. And so this project, Sounds of Belonging, is really focused on engendering a deeper listening to each other and to our landscapes. So join us at Sounds of Belonging. You can share your own story online, and I think we have a link to it coming up. First, we have about half a dozen stories online from all around the world. They are in English at this point. At some point, we want to create it multilingual so you can hear the stories in different languages to really support that linguistic and cultural diversity. And you also hear from the land. Let's see here.
Every day that I'm out on the prairie, I see my ancestors. I see people living on the land in such a dignified and respectful way that it can only be life-enhancing.
That was Joseph Gazingwolf, who just received his doctorate in the School of Life Sciences. So we're very proud of his work. He is Lakota.
I found it difficult to develop a sense of belonging after leaving home and crossing the Pacific Ocean for almost a decade. Most of my teenage years were spent in the United States. My hometown, Shenzhen, a place where its reputation for constant and profound changes is well known. New buildings seems to sprout up every year, reshaping the landscape. When I flew to Hong Kong airport and passed through the customs border to enter Shenzhen, the taxi drivers always took me on a different route, altering my perspective of the city every time I returned home.
So that gives you a little taste of these incredible, evocative, and profound stories from people from around the world, sharing a sound of belonging to them in urban, suburban, rural, tribal landscapes. So I hope you can join us. You can click on here and talk to me about the project later. We are relaunching it with support from GFL and looking to add a lot more stories in multi-languages and translation in the future. So Chi Miigwech, thank you so much for listening to me today. Thank you.